According to Dr. Ricardo Gatass of the Institute of Biophysics, working memory, declarative memory, and procedural memory are the three levels of memory in your brain. Sensory information judged by Broca's area to be sufficiently unusual is allowed to pass through Broca's area, thereby entering the dorsolateral prefrontal association area, the home of working memory, the uppermost of the three levels of memory in your brain. Think of working memory as the RAM in the biological computer. It is short-term and electrical. It is imagination, conscious awareness, the thought you are thinking now. The three functions of working memory are the visuospatial sketchpad, the articulatory loop, and the central executive. First, the visuospatial sketchpad is responsible for the manipulation and temporary storage of visual and spatial information, allowing you to see things in your mind. The second function of working memory, the articulatory loop, is a phonological memory store, which holds acoustic or speech-based material and rehearses sounds in the mind. The central executive is, well, think of it as a high-level messenger responsible for determining which sensory information is of sufficient importance or salience to be relayed to the prefrontal cortex, the foremost part of the brain responsible for planning, decision-making, and judgment. Remember, all of these functions, the visuospatial sketchpad, the articulatory loop, and the central executive, are happening in the left hemisphere of the brain between Broca's area and the prefrontal cortex, in the dorsolateral prefrontal association area, working memory. Working memory and the three functions it contains slowly disappear as sleep overtakes the mind, and the biological computer is shut down. RAM is now gone. Anything not saved to the hard drive is lost. The second level of memory, declarative memory, is the intermediate level. Think of it as an unreliable hard drive containing information that can be recalled, but only with an effort. Information that is less important or that is not occasionally recalled into working memory will slowly be erased by sleep. We call this forgetting. There are two kinds of declarative memory. The first of these is called episodic memory. The second is semantic memory, both of which are declarative, the intermediate level of memory. Now, episodic memory is when you not only have the memory, but you can remember something about the setting in which the memory occurred. You can remember where you were when you learned a particular thing. Now, semantic memory is declarative memory that can be recalled, but you can't recall the context of the initial learning. You will notice that the critical element between episodic and semantic declarative memory is very simply emotion. If there was not an emotional component to give the semantic memory an anchor, then it will never become episodic. Our goal is to create episodic declarative memories as we move toward procedural memory. It's also referred to as tacit knowledge or implicit knowledge, long-term and chemical, not electrical, involuntary and automatic. Procedural memory is the product of salience times repetition. Salience is simply the word neurologists used to refer to importance or relevance or impact. Repetition, you can call it frequency when you're buying media, but you want the identical person to see, hear, read, or view the identical same information at least 3 times within 7 nights' sleep if you have an average impact quotient. You jack up the salience, it requires less repetition. We'll talk more about that in a minute. Procedural memory is broken into 3 basic groups. First, there are conditioned reflexes, stomping the brake when your car's about to collide into something. That is a procedural memory. Then there are skills and habits, playing the piano. Why do my fingers know this song so much better than my mind? Swinging a golf club, etc. Skills and habits. As you practice, so will you play. Not because you've trained your muscles, but because you have trained the pathways in the brain that trigger those muscles. Number 3, emotional associations. The third group, the third level, the third function of procedural memory. Branding. The implantation of an associative memory in combination with a recall cue. Information of extremely high salience may enter into procedural memory with a repetition factor of only 1. 9/11, you'll remember exactly where you were when you heard about that for the rest of your life, with no additional repetitions. Why? Salience was off the chart. Impact, pow, instantly becomes permanent chemical memory after 1 repetition. The bad news is you'll never have an ad of that kind of salience. You're going to have to rely on repetition. Remember? Procedural memory, salience, impact times repetition. That's only going to happen a few times in your life when a repetition of 1 is enough to create procedural memory. Information of lower salience requires higher repetition. In other words, information that's less important must be repeated more often to be remembered. Branding occurs in procedural memory and causes the public to immediately think of your name at precisely their moment of need. Having successfully created an associative memory through your ads, the recall cue of need, the need of your product or service, triggers a chemical procedural memory. Your name pops into their mind